Okay, so today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. West Africa is a region that's constantly in the news, and for good reason. There's so much happening there. But specifically, we're going to be zeroing in on Burkina Faso and the security situation surrounding its current leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré.
Right. A pretty compelling situation, really. I mean, when you look at the details, since he came to power, back in September 2022 after that coup, the increase in his security measures is pretty striking.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, why does this relatively young leader need this much protection? It's not every day you see a head of state operating under such tight security. So what's going on there? What can we glean from all this?
Exactly. There's definitely more to it than meets the eye.
All right, well, let's start unpacking this by looking at Traoré's background. The sources really emphasize his military credentials. He's a military officer, and that seems to have given him some deep connections within the army, which directly translates to access to highly trained units for his personal security.
Yeah, you've hit a crucial point there in West Africa and really in many parts of the world. Political power and the military are very closely intertwined, so having strong ties within the armed forces is absolutely essential, not just for, consolidating power, but also for ensuring personal safety for a leader like Traoré. I mean, it's about trust, it's about loyalty, and it's about having access to a very particular set of skills.
Yeah, it's not like we're talking about your average security detail here, right?
Yeah.
The sources describe his security team as heavily armed soldiers,
Yeah.
Decked out in tactical gear, often seen moving around in armored vehicles. That paints a pretty stark picture in terms of threat assessment.
It absolutely does. I mean, you don't roll around with that level of firepower and protection just for show, right? It really speaks to the perceived level of threat that Traoré is facing. And it's not just about, him feeling a little uneasy. It suggests a real incredible threat, potentially even lethal.
And now here's where things get even more interesting. The sources bring up this idea of Russian influence. And it's not just speculation. There are increasing reports of Burkina Faso and Russia strengthening their security cooperation. There's even been talk of potential Wagner Group involvement in providing presidential protection.
That's where the geopolitical implications get really fascinating, right? I mean, if Burkina Faso is indeed turning to Russia for security expertise, particularly an entity as controversial as the Wagner Group, that signals a pretty big shift away from its traditional security partners.
Definitely makes you wonder what's driving that, right?
It could be a number of things, right? Perhaps there's a sense that they're not getting adequate support from their previous partners, or maybe it's a strategic decision to forge new alliances. Either way, the long-term implications for Burkina Faso in terms of, its international standing, its sovereignty, that's something to keep a close eye on.
Absolutely. And this sense of very real danger facing Traoré, it's only reinforced when you look at how he travels. I mean, the sources describe his convoy as heavily fortified. We're talking armored vehicles, machine gun mounted escorts, the whole 9 yards. You just don't see that kind of security unless there's a serious concern about assassination attempts.
Right. It's not your everyday motorcade.
Exactly. It's like a mobile fortress designed to deter and, if necessary, neutralize any attack. I mean, it really underscores the stakes involved and the perceived vulnerability of the head of state.
Absolutely. And to understand why such extreme security measures are in place, you have to consider the bigger picture, right? Burkina Faso is in the midst of battling these ongoing jihadists and insurgencies. It's a volatile environment, and the sources make it clear that protecting the president isn't just about his personal safety. It's a national priority.
Right. The stability of the entire country could hinge on his safety.
Exactly. Burkina Faso has been facing a growing threat from these jihadist groups for a while now, and these groups are armed, they're organized, they're seeking to destabilize the country and impose their own ideology.
So in that context, yeah, the president's security becomes absolutely paramount.
Absolutely. I mean, if there were a successful attack on the leadership, it could have a ripple effect throughout the country and beyond. It could really undermine any sense of order and stability.
It's also interesting to note how Traoré presents himself publicly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're told he's often seen wearing military fatigues and body armor. That's a pretty powerful image and a departure from, the typical suit and tie we see with most world leaders.
Right. It's a deliberate choice, for sure. On one hand, it reinforces his military credentials.
Yeah.
It shows that he's not afraid to get his hands dirty and that he's taking a hands-on approach to dealing with the country's security challenges.
It's a pretty strong message.
Yeah. But at the same time, it also serves as a constant reminder of the threats he's facing, right? It's almost like he's saying, look, this is the reality of the situation we're in. There's danger all around, and we need to be ready for it.
So it's a leadership style that combines military authority with the realities of living in a very high-risk environment.
Exactly. It's a unique approach.
To really tie this all together, let's go back to how Traoré came to power. He was only 34 years old when he became Burkina Faso's leader after the September 2022 coup, and his stated goal was to restore security. The sources really highlight his military-first approach, the strengthening ties with Russia, and the cutting off of relations with France. It all suggests a pretty significant shift in the country's direction.
Oh, absolutely. Traoré represents a potential new path for Burkina Faso, one where the military takes the lead in addressing the security situation and where new international partnerships are being formed his age. The extraordinary security measures around him, it all makes him a pivotal figure in the country's ongoing political transformation.
And it's not just speculation, right? The sources even go so far as to say that his security detail might be one of the most heavily armed presidential security teams in all of Africa, that really drives home the gravity of the situation and the perceived need for this level of protection.
It's a powerful statement.
Okay, so to summarize what we've learned, it seems like Captain Traoré's heightened security is a direct result of several interconnected factors. His military background gives him those crucial connections to elite forces, the heavily armed nature of his security team, and that fortified convoy. They reflect a clear assessment that he's facing some serious threats. And then you have the potential involvement of international actors like Russia, which suggests a shifting geopolitical landscape. And it's all happening against the backdrop of these ongoing jihadist insurgencies in Burkina Faso, which make the president's safety a matter of national security.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's this complex web where the leader's personal security is inseparable from the broader security challenges facing the nation and the choices being made to address them.
It's fascinating stuff, and it really leaves us with a lot to think about. So here's a question for all of you listening, given everything we've just discussed. What do you think are the wider implications of a leader as young as Traoré needing this kind of extreme protection? What does it tell us about the state of Burkina Faso right now? And what could it mean for the future of the country and even the wider West African region? It's a complicated situation, but hopefully this deep dive has shed some light on the key issues at play. Thanks for joining us.
It's definitely a situation worth watching.
Absolutely. All right, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for tuning in.
See ya.
We'll catch you next time.
Take care.